For this project, I'm gonna flip table design on its head. But seriously, almost all tables are just rectangles. And then sometimes they're perfect squares. That's crazy. But then this dude, King Arthur, was like, what if we made a circular table? What? Was it King Arthur? I don't know. And then some crazy genius was like, what if we stretched out the circle and made an oval? What? But really, how often have you seen a table that's not just a standard shape? So I had the idea. What would it look like if I went outside the box, if I designed a table specifically for my family and our needs in our space? And here's where it led me. I started with this shape, sort of concave polygon with 7 sides. So after talking to the client, our 2 main goals were to have a table that would be good for our family of 5 to eat together, as you know, 95% of the time it's just the 5 of us. And then secondly, we wanted it to be big enough to invite more people over, to have 9, 10 people fit comfortably at the table. After I imported my initial sketch, I started looking at, 20 different ways to try and fine-tune this thing so the 5 of us could sit in the round with good eyesight looking at each other with enough space for food or centerpiece at the center of the table. I then attempted unsuccessfully many times to try and fit it all on one 4x8 sheet. Then the last step was to fine-tune it with exact dimensions and to get it all dimensioned up so I could start cutting it out. As many of you know by now, most of my work is taking old fawn logs and turning them into usable creative things. But for this project, oh shoot, here comes a client. Do you want me to show you the design before I start cutting it up?
What do you mean cutting it up? It's a table. Right, because it's beneath you to just have a normal table. You got to do something to it.
Well, okay, so I'm just gonna get going on the table and then I'll show you when it's done, okay?
I'm gonna go.
Okay, good talk. So I just finished laying this out and I'm about ready to start cutting it, but I actually feel really weird because it's not symmetrical at all. And when I'm imagining myself sitting at this table, my body like naturally wants to twist. And I'm a little worried this is gonna feel really weird to sit at because I've never sat at a table like this. And I wonder if there's a reason people don't design tables like this. So like I was saying before the client so rudely interrupted me, for this project, I didn't want to use some nice, hardwood, oak, ash, maple that I have lying around from trees that I've collected because it's really a prototype. It's an experiment and I don't know how it's going to turn out. And even if it turns out awesome and we enjoy using it for the next couple of years, I'm sure there'll be a few things I want to change before we make a table that will hopefully last another 40 years. Slight change of plans. I was going to do two full layers of this OSB. I was going to glue them together so it'd be nice and solid. Then I was going to do a 3rd layer around the outside to give it a little bit more thickness, almost up to 2 inches. This stuff is just too heavy to do that, so I'm changing plans. I'm going to just use 1 layer of this OSB and then I'm going to frame around the outside. I think it'll be just as stable and it'll be a lot lighter. So now I'm going to flip it over and make my frame. And yes, I'm wearing gloves. Don't make fun of me. This stuff is giving me crazy splinters. Hopefully I can get this cleaned up enough so it won't be splintering us while we try and eat. So after I cut this side down like this cutoff piece is at just the right angle, so that'll fit together really nicely. I'll clamp this one down, then cut that side. So I think the absolute best thing about designing and building your own furniture is you can make it for you. You can make it the right height for you. You can make it the right size for you, the right shape for you. It just opens so many possibilities to make things better. In architecture and furniture design, you have an opportunity to change the way you live. So I think it's awesome to be able to take advantage of that and just do something innovative and unique and specialized to your place in life and how you want to live. And yeah, it might take a lot of practice and it might not look perfect, but I bet it'll be worth the journey. While I'm waiting for the glue to dry, I'm testing out a few different options for the edge. I want to make a nice curve or a nice slant so it's comfortable for your arms leaning up against it. And I wanted to test out a few router bits on the OSB just to make sure it'll work so it won't splinter my piece all apart. As I spend all this time doing this, I can't help but think, is this a lipstick on a pig kind of a thing? I don't know. It's such a low-grade material. I feel like maybe I'm just wasting my time trying to make it look clean and smooth. I guess we won't know until we finish. Now that I got the top to a good place, I'm gonna flip it over and then start thinking about the legs. Now for the legs, I'll first rough cut them and then I'll send them through the thickness planer in order to get a nice flat clean surface so I can glue them together to make a little bit thicker leg. This is just your standard yellow pine that you get from a big box store. I got the glue on the legs drying here. I got the top looking pretty fine. So all I gotta do now is shape the legs and put the bracing on the bottom of the table, connect that all together, and then I can start finishing the tabletop. So let's see if I can bust this thing out or if it's gonna take another month. Okay, so I got a new tool, very useful, important tool that I needed for this project specifically and had to get, or otherwise I couldn't get this project done. So I'm gonna use it right now and see how it works. This is a track saw and hopefully it'll work a little bit better than my circular saw and a piece of trim. And just like that, you have a finished leg. Obviously a bandsaw would have been the perfect tool for this job, but the track saw is a fraction of the price and I actually think I might use it a little bit more than I would the bandsaw. But that's on my wish list. Maybe I'll get one sometime in the future. But like I always say, use what you got, be creative, be safe, and you'll be able to figure it out. Okay, I fiddled around with these for a little bit, and I think they're finally ready to go together. Now, why in the world would I only put 3 legs on a table this big? Well, my number one priority was that you could sit anywhere around the table without having your legs touching the table's legs. If you want to touch the legs of the person next to you, that's up to you and them, if they consent. But really, don't touch other people's legs. Yeah, I want to be able to have people sit all the way around the table. I'm putting the leg braces on and it's going pretty good. Just kind of custom fitting these with all these crazy angles is a little bit difficult, but it's not taking too long. So I'm going to try and knock the rest of this out pretty quick. I will show the kid test later just to see how tipsy this table is. Okay, let's see if it fits. Whew, perfect. Now I'm going to mark this and taper it a little bit so it doesn't stick off and you don't see it so much. I'm just cleaning this up a bit with my block plane. I think I'm about ready to flip it over. Just need to put a few more bolts in and then we'll see if the 3 legs work. I'm a little nervous that it might not be stable enough. We just need to experiment and see what happens. So I'm gonna finish putting these bolts in and then I'll flip it over and see if it falls over. I've got the legs all bolted on, everything is secure, and I really want to get this thing stood up to see if it balances on 3 legs. The only person here that could really help me is the client, and I kind of want to surprise her still. She hasn't seen it yet. Should I get the client out here to help me flip it, or should I wait till tomorrow? Okay, well, I just can't wait. I'm gonna go ahead and glue it up and hope it balances. I think it will. I think it'll be really good. This leg is really stable. It's just a touch wobbly like this, but I can see this flexing. But I think once I get that glued down, it'll work out really good, really nice and stable. This one's even more stable. Doesn't move at all. Nice and solid, no glue yet. These bolts aren't even really tightened down. So I'm just gonna go ahead and glue it and hope it works out. In order to glue these supports on, I ended up going with a polyurethane glue because it expands. Now, some people think that expansion is structural, and it's really not, but I still figured it would be a better fit than the standard wood glue that doesn't expand at all. Because the OSB just has so many little cracks and crevices, I figured that was the best way to go. And also, in addition to screwing from the bottom like this, I did put in as many screws as I could from the top. Those will be much more structural. You'll see here the OSB is really rough on the top. That's because this was the only side of the 3 sheets of OSB that I originally bought that didn't have printing on it. So I did a little test and it looked like it would sand out pretty easily, whereas the ink that they use for the printing is really hard to sand out. Okay, I think I got this all sanded down pretty good. I think it's cleaned off pretty good and ready for the epoxy. Total boat. Let's get it going. The reason I'm using epoxy instead of polyurethane or something else like that is I want to get rid of the OSB texture. You know, there's all those little cracks and crevices, and I just want a nice flat surface and not have that texture come through. And the epoxy does a much better job of filling all those voids and giving you a much smoother surface in the end. Okay, looks like wet OSB. So after the first pass of the sanding, you tell just how unflat it was. So I'm gonna keep sanding a little bit, and then hopefully the next coat of epoxy will fill that in nicely. The second coat of epoxy looks so much better, and it's looking nice and smooth. All the little creases and cracks are filled in. And so I got rid of that OSB texture completely now. Now I'm just gonna sand it down, get a little of those dimples and tiny imperfections out, and then put the next coat of finish on. Thankfully, my apprentice was there to help because I really hate sanding and finishing, but he did a pretty good job. He even helped me sand off all the epoxy drips on the bottom of the table. I then helped him add some extra bracing in there just because when the table was standing up, it just wiggled a little bit, so I wanted to stiffen it up. Make sure you watch till the end because I'm going to put all my kids on the table, maybe the dog, and see how far you can go until it tips over.
Daddy, I'm not going to wipe that away.
You're not?
I don't like brown.
It's not gonna be brown.
It's dark brown.
Hey!
I decided to paint a border around the outside of the table for a few reasons. First, so it wasn't just a big chunk of OSB. Second, so I could cover up the edge where the framing was, and also where I had to attach the extra little pieces that didn't fit on the 4x8 sheet. Okay, let's see what the client thinks. All right, your parents are coming in a few days.
True that.
I've got a few days left on the table. You haven't seen it yet, have you?
I have not seen it at all yet.
Have you peeked?
No, I have not. Despite my best efforts, every time I even try to take a look, the kids catch me.
Are you gonna like it?
I have no idea. I don't usually like anything you design until I see it finished, so 50-50 odds.
two things I definitely would do differently next time. First is that I would have waited a few days to put the polyurethane on and sanded the paint down to get rid of the brush marks, because that kind of made the whole entire finish not look so great. And I'll tell you about how I would do the legs differently near the end of the video. I'm about to call the client in and do the big reveal. There.
Okay.
And open them.
Whoa! That's a table. A really big table. Like twice the size of our old table. I love it. I like the paint. I like the inlay of the, what did you call this? OSB? I like it. It's really great. I like the shape of it. Explain to me why we did this.
You can sit here and you're a little further away from people because of your celiacs. I can sit at the head of the table. The kids can sit around. We can all gather around and still have some intimacy, and we have a little bit more space at the center of the table. And then for all the other stuff that piles up, we have this side of the table.
Nice. I like it. I like the usability. I like that you thought that through. That's really great. I'm totally getting Star Trek, The Next Generation vibes from this table. Number 1, hand me my beverage. Data. Engage.
So even though the 3 legs really make it possible for a bunch of people to gather around without their legs being touched, it's just a little tipsy, but watch till the end because you'll see how big of a kid you could put on the farthest out point. But for the next version, I think I'll go with 4 legs just to be safe. And the table's not perfect, but things don't have to be perfect to be excellent. So get out there and build yourself something beautiful. Okay, kid test. We're gonna try the small child first. Small child, pass. Medium child, it passes. Medium child, pass. Whoa.
Still pretty good.
It passes. Large child passes.